The experiences discussed in this video are my own personal experiences and do not reflect the entire Jewish religion. The Jewish religion, like any other religion, has people that practice to all different extents. I grew up in a small extremist community that functions as a cult. Just like Christianity is a religion that has communities that function as a cult, Judaism does too. If you disagree, feel free to come and debate me. Also, the fact that you have access to the internet and you're even seeing this right now means you're not currently in the cult, so back the HE double hockey stick off.
Привет.
Rabbi Asher.
Hey, how's it going? Как дела?
Hey,
Добрый день.
how
We're
We're
are
talking
you?
about Jewish
I
food.
what?
I said we're talking about Jewish food.
Oh, we were talking about Jewish food,
Oh, yeah.
100%. Well, first question: do you know the name of the food that was okay? It was sold in the streets. It's a very important question. It was sold in the
please
sides
no.
of the streets in Israel. It's like they had this iron kind of hot thing, and they would stick it to the sides.
You know the stuff that Druze make, where it's like a big,
Yeah.
like thin pancake with like a cream cheese spread on it.
Oh, please no. Please no.
What is that? I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh,
Cream cheese?
Oh, my wife just said she
Latkes?
doesn't remember.
no,
No,
not
it's a
latkes.
Druze food.
No,
Oh,
it was
So
it
Druze.
when
was it was like a doughy kind of thing.
I don't know.
you know when you drive around like on not inside the city, but where you're on the like country roads in Israel, and like the Druze stand there and they make this like big pita and they spread the cream cheese on it with spices and roll it up.
No. You said Druze, right?
Yeah, Druze.
Like
Jews.
Druzim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Druzim.
Uh-huh. Interesting. No, I don't.
What
So my wife
I
just
do
said
have
she
a
doesn't
question.
remember.
Oh, that
well.
sucks. That sucks. I do have a question for you because I think last time we spoke, I don't know if we got disconnected or you dropped out, but I think I was asking. I kind of want to finish that conversation. I don't know if you remember,
I
but it
remember
was
exactly what we were talking about. Exactly. Which is where you left off right now, actually. With the
right.
idea that.
That's why I was thinking about it because we
Yeah.
were just brought it up and then you popped up and I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's
called
why I
Hashkafa
remembered it.
Pratis.
Look at that. Okay, so we were talking about exposing children to other belief systems or other ideas, really in the sense of like not only schools, but if your child leaves the religion, whether or not they should be in the house, if you have younger children.
Oh, your
I
child for
think,
sure. Like legally,
okay.
if he's under, like if he or she's under your custody, you can't kick them out till they're 18, right? So
Okay,
then,
but what if they're 18?
right. So if they're 18 and they're in some way pulling the kids outside, like out of the philosophy that you're trying to like, raise your kids in, then I mean, who's really being destructive there? I mean, is it you or the kid who's in some way disrespecting the rules of your house? So I mean, I think that like the rebellious child should be respectful enough to not pull the kids away from what the parents want for that kid till at least the kid turns 18 or something, and still, that's here. Look,
So
I mean,
what
for
if?
example,
Okay.
because I think we're just disagreeing on philosophies here. If for some reason there was one kid that was a racist, right? Like not just whether you dislike a Hasidic lifestyle, but a straight out racist, and they're in some way dragging your kids who are not racist down that same path. Of course, you would have no issue trying to separate that child from your other kids because you find that destructive. So it's ultimately a differing of values. Okay, like I appreciate religion, you don't. I mean, like we both think racism is a horrible thing. So I think that you'd agree on that, right?
So this is the difference. I think that if I was raising my kids with certain values, let's say not to be racist, to be accepting of everyone, if one kid was racist, I think the other kids would be strong enough to know that, like, not be influenced by one person having crazy ideas.
That's
Like,
not
that's
how
what
it
I'm
works.
saying. If the kid is, it kind of is. With ideologies like that, it kind of is how it works. Like, if
One bad apple.
I
One
what?
bad apple spoils the bunch. One bad apple spoils the bunch. In anything, in promiscuity,
No.
in how they
Wait, can
dress.
I Can I say something here?
Sure.
So I'm not gonna lie, like when you like leave, right? So my parents were like scared of me influencing people badly, but I agreed to dress a certain way around the house and not talk to the little kids about like my views. And that I think like it also depends on the person who's leaving. Like if you're agreeing to live in a nice way and not like you're obviously not wearing pants around the house and stuff like that, then it shouldn't be an issue to your parents. But if you are the type of person that's like trying to tell everyone, like, oh, this is bullshit, like whatever it is, then I can understand your parents not wanting you to be around. But in most cases, I find the kids are very much willing to like go by the rules of the family when they're in the house. So I don't see why it would be an issue there.
Yes, because most of the time it's the kids that really don't want to lose their parents and their entire structure and
Yes.
their support system. And they have more to lose in this situation, to be honest. And I agree with me also. Completely dressed the way my mom wanted me to dress. Did not, when my sister asked questions, the way I always answered was, just ask mommy about it. Something like that. However, she still, as soon as she saw me wearing pants outside, still kicked me out because that could be influencing. When my sister asked a question about like me wearing pants, she got angry at me. See, you're influencing her or something like that. Again, like I think if you are strong in your beliefs and you're teaching your kids the reason behind your beliefs and why you believe what you believe, and teaching them that it's a choice, this is something they should want, this is something that's beautiful, this is something that will give them a deeper connection in life, then I don't think anyone can influence them to a different way. Just like with you, no, I can't influence you, my view, and you can't influence me on your view. We're not changing each other's beliefs. I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, I completely disagree. I mean, I think, especially like if you're religious, for example, it's more fun for kids not to keep Shabbos than to keep Shabbos. It's more fun for girls not to wear quarter-length sleeves and long. I mean, it just comes easier. Uh, uh, the, but to think that a 12-year-old is going to appreciate the reason why she wears a long skirt or any reason for sniut in general, that's kind of hard to believe. I like maybe when they get older, but a 13, 14, 15-year-old actually acknowledges why, you know, like she has to be snua. Like I don't. It's not any kid I ever met. I mean, the average kid wants to do what's easier, and being from at 16 is not easy.
So why would, like, if you have to understand also this is their life, like why would you want them to do something they don't want to do? I understand that you think it's the right thing, but if they don't want to do it, shouldn't you give them that space to figure it out? Like you want them to be happy in life. So shouldn't you give them that space to figure it out? And
Okay, well,
if
kids
it's
don't want to
true, they'll
brush their
come back
teeth.
to it.
The kids don't want to brush their teeth. They don't want to eat healthy. They don't want to like take medicine or visit the doctor or do any. I mean, what kid naturally wants to do that? That's why, I mean, it says in Mishlei to raise the kid in the way that he shall go, and when he's old, he won't depart from it. They're still kids; they don't know. You tell them what's important, and then later they'll make the connection.
Okay, I think we have to go back a little bit. Do you believe that Judaism is the one right religion and everything else is wrong?
Yes, I believe it.
Okay, so question, there are over 4,000 religions in the world, and if I ask you certain questions about Hashem, certain questions about the way he works exactly, there are certain things we can't understand because we're not God, we're not all-knowing. So you're making that decision based on the information you have in front of you, and that's totally okay, but there's no way to know 100% until you're dead.
No, for sure, for sure.
So
Yeah, but it's not only about religion. It could be about politics. It could be about, you know, like the way you see the world. Here again, if you separate it from religion, and for some reason, like you want your kid to be a progressive leftist, and I want my kid to be a right wing conservative, you're gonna feel the exact same way. You're gonna like try to instill those values in your kid when they're young, so that when they're old, they'll at least, I don't know, to have some connections to make with the way you raise them. So it's not only about religion. that's the whole purpose of having children, influencing people with your values, your own, people that you've made with your values. That's the main reason of having kids. If not,
If
you know, the idea that you should
if that's
tell
the
a
reason
12 or
you're having
13-year-old to
kids,
figure it
that's
out for
kind of
themselves is absurd.
if that's the reason you're having kids, I think that's kind of self-centered and shouldn't be having kids, honestly, if I'm being straight up. But on top of that, though, like political beliefs, I don't think that you should only raise your child to see one way and only see one viewpoint, because that creates extremists, and that creates the divide that we have today in this country with the extremists. And let's take religion again, because that's kind of what this is. But if you see in public schools, so many Muslims and Christians go to public schools with a whole bunch of people with different belief systems, yet when they're adults, they still are the religion that they were raised with because they believe in it. Some people don't believe in it, but but the people who are raised with those values believe in it because they believe in it. Like, I think I spoke to Zeno. He's Muslim. He went to public school and he's still a strong Muslim. Being exposed to other beliefs makes you question your beliefs, but it should also make you stronger in your beliefs if your beliefs are true.
Yes, and not only that, I was actually just having a conversation with my friend about this morning, and we were saying how it's weird how the people in our class that were the less religious, like their families weren't as tough on them, they're all still religious now. Meanwhile, the ones that had really tough parents, they're completely away from it. So it's really interesting to see how the more pressure you put on your kids and you're telling them, I don't trust your decisions, I don't trust your views, you shouldn't trust yourself, essentially, you're ruining their self-esteem, and you're doing things that are you're showing them that they can't be trusted, which is never good for a child.
Not only that, if I can add to that, I also feel like if you just tell somebody what to believe, right? And they're not really accepting it, are they? They're just taking what you're saying as blind faith. So I feel like as me and most Muslims that I know, that go to public school, you're forced to think about other things, and then you can do your adequate research, and then you can come to the best possible conclusion based on what you have. But I feel like at the same time, if I'm just brought up in one ideology and I'm just told that is correct, and without the room for my own acceptance of it, I feel like that's what you may say you believe in it, but do you really believe in it deep down? I think it's more of a fear of being wrong rather than being, you get what I'm saying, content enough to say that I believe this wholeheartedly because nothing else makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, we apply from a different perspective, because I think, again, it's just a values issue. Like, if for some reason your child wanted to harm animals, right? Would you say that's wrong? Would you in some way try to instill your values that we shouldn't hurt animals on them, or let them figure it out on their own?
Okay.
Is that a question?
I think the comparison that you're making, you're taking different religious beliefs that don't connect to somebody's moral or somebody's character and comparing them to changing religions. Like, my mom did this also when I left. She told me, if your daughter's a serial killer, or multiple unaliver, would you support her? And I just couldn't understand, and I still can't understand how you're equating choosing a different belief system to doing something that harms another living thing. Those aren't good comparisons.
But I also feel like the premise of his question was flawed, right? Because I agree with you. I think you should be able to raise your children with your ideology. But to say this is the only thing you're ever going to learn and anything outside of that is not accepted, I think that puts a lot of pressure on them to just blindly accept something without being able to evaluate it.
Well, that's the whole purpose of religion. If you believe in a religion, you believe it's true by definition. Now, you could tell them, well, you're. But that's.
I don't agree.
What's the point of joining any religion if you think that every religion is on the same level or all equally true. I mean, that doesn't make any.
But
I mean,
we're
what
not talking
religion?
about the religion of the parents here. We're talking about the religion of the child, right? So if the
Yeah,
parents are 100% content, that, for example, me as a Muslim, I am 100% on the Islamic bandwagon until the day that I die, right? But my children, I'm going to teach them Islam, I'm going to teach them the Quran, but I'm also going to let them experience other things as well. And I'm confident enough to know that what I'm teaching to them is right, and wherever they go, they will come to that conclusion too. I feel like if you're
wait,
not
wait.
doing that, you're kind of just saying,
So
with all due
again,
respect, I don't want to use the word cult, but it is kind of a type of indoctrination.
so what are you willing to allow them to experiment with? I mean, how about homosexuality?
I would caution them against the
Okay. So then,
consequences of it as a Muslim, 100%. But whatever they choose to do is entirely between them and God.
obviously, they're able to do whatever they want. I mean, but you're not going to kill your child because they have.
To do is entirely between them and God.
Obviously, they're able to do whatever they want. I mean, but you're not going to kill your child because they happen to do that. But you would tell them, don't do it. Correct?
100%.
Okay. So then you agree with me and not the host, because the host says, like, who are
No,
you
I,
to
I don't
impose
agree
that on
with
my
you because
child?
you're saying you shouldn't expose them to anything else
No,
except
I
for
didn't
your
say
religious
that.
belief.
I mean,
Okay?
I'm saying like
Sorry,
just how
clarify
you.
something.
Okay, I'm saying that just like you feel that it's your right to expose your child to your religion, right? Um, if that child, like, if you have another child that is in some way is trying to subvert that, then you would in some way try to separate that child from the child that doesn't know as much. Correct?
I would hope, like I think it's an alien was saying, I would hope that the child would have enough sense to say, okay, if you don't believe in this, that's between you and God. But can we act, not act like you don't, but kind of like just act in a reasonable manner, in which way you're not trying to impose your ideas on the other kids, etc., etc. This is still my household, etc. I would like there to be that form of respect.
Oh, obviously. I mean, I would want my kid to make the right decision, but we don't put our children. When there's such grave consequences for making the wrong decision, especially at such an early age, it's the responsibility of the parent, not just regarding a cousin or a sister or a brother, but even friends. Like if you see people from the street, who have, let's say, less refined values in some way trying to corrupt your child or to subvert what you taught them, I think any responsible parent would separate their child from those kids, correct?
I agree with you to a sense. For example, if one of my children decided to be a drug dealer tomorrow,
Right, for sure.
I, I
So
would I
if
would
for
share
a
that echo. I
religious
would echo that
person,
sentiment. I agree. But for me, when it comes to religion specifically, what at the end of the day, they are your child. What does kicking them out actually? What does it actually do? Does that push them away further? Because is this a case of, okay, he's no longer Jewish or Muslim or whatever, therefore I'm just going to throw him away and
no,
focus
no,
on the
no,
rest of these? I don't think that's a productive way of
no.
doing it.
Only if they start trying to pull your children away to in some way join them on that path, right? If they respectfully say, you know what, I
I
don't
would,
believe in
in
this.
that case,
Uh-huh.
I would warn them against it and say, show some respect for the rest of the family, etc. And if they continue to persist in that, then it's possible that I could see that as an alternative solution. But
All
yeah,
right, so we don't disagree.
So
okay then.
this is
If that's what you're saying, I
one
agree.
second. This is the difference. The difference is you were mentioning that you wouldn't even expose them to other beliefs like
That's what I thought.
school-wise friends or something like that. You're taking extreme situations. You're taking extreme ideas like a drug dealer or an unaliver or somebody who's harming animals or something like that. And you're comparing it to just having a friend or sibling who has a different belief system.
No, 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 not. I never
So
said that. Now, if it's contrary to my belief system, is one thing. We could expose them to a lot of things that doesn't affect their religiosity. It's, if you're speaking from a religious person, religious people take this very seriously. We actually think that if we break the Torah, we're actually in some way like separating ourselves from God. We truly believe that. So clearly exposing my kid to, I don't know, to Christianity when I'm Jewish or to Islam when I'm Jewish, I think at the end of the day, when they're young, is ultimately going to hurt them more than help them. When they're older, once they have a more of a background in Judaism, then perhaps they'll be able to make a more educated decision. Like, yes, I'm Jewish and I'm able to articulate why I'm Jewish, but I don't think the average 14-year-old can make that decision for themselves.
Can I ask you a quick
So,
question?
sure.
Sorry, Faye, just a very quick question. When you say expose them to Christianity or Islam, are you talking about the education of it, or are you just saying public school where there's Christians and Muslims?
Well, to any form of dawah, like, or any form of like missionizing by Christians, I don't even think the average Jew is strong enough in his faith to fight against that, especially not the average 14-year-old.
Okay, so
Not,
would you send your children to public school? Is basically what I'm asking.
no, of course not.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so that's the difference. So the difference is, again, not exposing them to any other belief besides for your own kind of cultivates extremism, because they never have to question their beliefs and they never have to critically think about their beliefs,
Okay.
because they're only being exposed to people who believe the exact same thing as them.
Right.
And so that just causes them to go
Only when
further
they're
and
young.
further into it, which is
Only when they're
what?
young. Only when they're young. What's the greatest epidemic that's affecting Jewish kids? It's atheism. When the average kid comes out of yeshiva, right, they go into college, and unless they go to Torah college or yeshiva university, they get exposed to left-wing ideas and they drop religion. And so it shows how much they actually knew Judaism well enough that they weren't even able to remain it and argue against these ideas. See, the idea that if they were taught well, they're in some way going to be able to challenge a college professor is kind of, it's not true. Okay, these college
So
professors. Huh?
So this is the thing. I think we have to go back again to the whole idea of believing that this religion is right and everything else is false. The thing is, I feel like you're equating somebody being religious to somebody being a good person. You're equating their level of religiousness to being a good and moral person. So we got to divide the two first, because again, there are over 4,000 religions, and there's no way of knowing in this lifetime that the one you're in is the one right one and everything else is false. What are the chances statistically that you were born into the one right religion and everything
I
else
could
is
explain
false?
it. I could explain it.
Sure.
In life, the choice is typically not between what's horrific and what's utopian, but between what's good and what's better. It doesn't have to be perfect and everything be false. It just has to be better than any other belief system there. And I would say Judaism, being that it's the ethical bedrock of both Christianity and Islam, because the ethical laws appear in the Torah, and everything else like Islam and Christianity just introduce narrative. I could say that our religion, specifically the Torah, has done more to civilize this planet than any other belief system out there, more than any other book. There's other books that helped, for sure, but the ethics in the Torah, right, I think makes you a more moral person in general. This is why I want my kids to remain Jewish and not atheist.
So do you think people with other religions aren't moral, or people who are atheists are not moral?
I think that people who are religiously Jewish are just more moral. I'm not saying, for sure you can have a horrible Jewish person and a great atheistical person, but in the vast majority of cases, if you have someone trying to stick to a moral code, to some higher level of ethics, that person is expected to in some way do more good than someone who lives a nihilistic existence, who is really, it doesn't have a standard for what's right and wrong. He tries to invent the wheel ethically daily. I think,
It's hard, because once you go into really religious people, I'm not gonna lie, growing up in a religious community, I've definitely seen more people who use their knowledge not to help, but to make kids and other people feel bad about themselves. I'm not gonna lie, there was an imbalance there with the people. The more religious you were, kind of the harder you were on your kids and their friends and stuff like that. So there
compared to
were a
atheists,
few exceptions, but I would have to say there was more the other way.
compared to atheists,
Well, I don't know. I don't know the stats.
So this is the thing, though. I would disagree with you, because when you're only moral because a religion says so, and because you're afraid of the consequences, or because of a book, I think you don't have to look internally. If you look at statistics, there is more SA and more abuse in extremist religions than there are in more secular societies and more open communities,
no
because
way.
Extremism tends to breed abuse.
I disagree. I mean, how can you say that? I mean, it's magnified more because we expect more out of
1
religious
second.
people.
No,
But to say that
it's not, honey.
the
In
religious
the
people,
Hasidic community, it's thrown under a rug, but it
first of all,
happens all the freaking time.
Yeah,
Can I
I've
quickly
been
say
through.
something to
Yeah,
I just feel
I'm going to
like
bring up the
you
stats. Yeah.
don't really believe that your religious beliefs can hold up under scrutiny. That's what it
Yeah,
sounds like to me,
because
right?
I
It
mean,
sounds like, oh, if I expose my children to anything other than Judaism, they're going to turn to atheism. Well, then what
no.
that means, you don't really believe that your religion is true.
I have a show I have a podcast. I've debated more atheists and more Christians and more Jews than anyone alive. I think my religion could stand scrutiny. The average
Then
kid,
why are you afraid of other people falling into atheism if what you have is the truth and you teach the truth?
because we're talking about children who are not equipped yet to respond. If they're 21 already, let's say, okay, you've raised them the best you could, given them the best responses to secular answers, and they go off, then there, okay, fine. You failed somehow. Okay. But to not even give them a chance, the average kid is always going to do what's easier. And the atheistical path, I mean, by definition, it has no standards. By definition, it's the easier path. That's what kids are going to want to do. I mean, how are you going to tell your kid to go to bed early, take medicine, keep the Sabbath, pray? No one wants to do that. It doesn't come natural. You do it, you're trying to cultivate a relationship with an invisible God that you believe in the long run is going to make you a more ethical person and make your community better. These are all statements of faith, right? However, statistically shows that people who are religious, they're more benevolent, they volunteer more time, they give more money, they typically live richer, fuller lives compared to those who walk around like they're a piece of cosmic garbage in terms of like they don't know a purpose for anything. They think everything was by mistake. You're telling me that atheistical children turn out better than kids who are raised with some religion? I mean, come on. It's
Oh,
First of
okay,
all, you're
so
talking to somebody of the Abrahamic faith, so
No, I'm not
although I
talking
disagree
about
with some
you
of
in
it,
general. I mean, I'm saying,
yeah, okay, so
everyone.
fair enough. But look, but at the same time, you're not trusting the fact that you are raising your children, you are raising them on Jewish values, or raising them on the Torah and the Tanakh and whatever else you guys have. So even throughout their teenage years, going into adulthood, you're telling me you can't trust them enough to not to go to public school and not adhere to the religion,
Of
which
course not.
once again you believe is 100% true.
The
I
job of
just
public
don't
school,
understand.
the job of public school is to indoctrinate. Okay, and that's our job as parents to instill our kids with our values. Again, that's the main reason to have kids. To in some way.
indoctrinate.
Wait, did you
No,
go
no.
to public school?
Oh, I went to public school. Yeah.
Okay, so where's the indoctrination?
Oh, I was definitely indoctrinated till around 21 years old. I mean, I found God on my own. But the average kid who starts off on the wrong foot remains on the wrong foot.
Mm.
I mean, I don't believe that at all. I mean,
So,
generally don't. I think
so
if
you're
you're
saying,
very
okay,
confident
so you're
about your
Muslim,
beliefs, it will
right?
hold up.
So you believe that a kid who goes to public school and a kid who goes to Islamic school, they have the same amount of chances for remaining Islamic?
100%.
Okay, that's silly. I mean, that's completely
I
silly.
don't
I
because
mean,
I'm
you
also
can't
looking
just
at
say it's
wait.
silly
I'm also
without
looking at it
bringing
from an
facts.
Islamic
Well,
point of view because we believe
look
in
at
qadar. We believe in the idea of what Allah writes is what happens. So 100%, I believe that, and it's a
All right,
matter of
you
my
believe in
Islamic
fate.
doctrine.
All right,
well,
but you
take
believe in
my
some sort of
experience. Take
predestination.
Sorry, guys. Take my experience for instance. I mean, when I was studying in yeshiva, at the time the yeshiva I was studying in didn't have a high school program, so I couldn't graduate unless I went to a high school to finish my to get my diploma. So I went as a frum kid with tzitzis out and my kippah on my head, and I went to a public high school for my 12th grade to get the and studied the yeshiva in the evening. But I was at the impressionable age of 17, and my family, my aunt and uncle, they forbade me. They said, do not talk to anyone, do not befriend anyone. You're only there to study, and they put the frighteners on me. They said, don't mix with these people. So there was indoctrination there. I mean, I was exposed to all the sorts of different people I'd never met before, and yeah, but they told me no, you've not to mix with anyone.
And
Uh-huh.
did that help you or harm you?
It didn't harm me. I ended up meeting this beautiful girl from the Barbados, from the islands,
So you didn't listen.
and almost caused a rabbi on Melrose Avenue to have an accident because he saw me walking down the road with the kippah on my head and my arm around this girl.
Okay, so you didn't listen, so that one was not
So,
good.
Yeah, but the
this
fear
is
was there. The fear was
can I
there.
put 2 cents in?
Yeah, of course.
sure,
Yeah,
Ruben.
because I'm actually 100% in agreement with Rabbi here. Uh,
Of course you are.
No surprise there.
But maybe it's because I'm a parent and I have a 17-year-old, so I can tell from personal experience that yes, you are, as a parent, you're 100% responsible for making sure that your kids are given the right tools before they're facing the world, because the world is not easy, and it's gonna crush whatever they believe in and whatever they're told at home. It doesn't matter how much you're going to tell them at home. You send them to public school, the amount of counter information that they're going to be given, you,
Yeah.
and no matter how good you are as a parent, you're not going to be able to handle it. So you have to
Well,
first give them, hold on, you have to first give them the tools to be able to think critically, to be able to have knowledge, and so that they can, when they're faced with this information, they can comprehend it, they can put it through the prism of critical thinking, and then they can debate it or accept it regardless of what it is. But you can't just throw them to the wolves and expect for best thing to happen, because that's not going to happen.
yeah, but it
Can
did for
I
But
me. I
are
add to
mean,
you
that?
actually
yeah.
giving them the tools? Are you actually giving them the tools if you're only exposing them to people with their own beliefs and nobody with any contradicting beliefs? Are you actually giving them the tools to succeed in life? You're only exposing them to people with the exact same beliefs as you.
Wait, can I further
You
that point? Because I feel like there's an analogy here as well. Because if you're
go ahead.
only exposing them to your beliefs and you're saying that you're preparing them for when they do go outside, then they're going to have a massive reality shock once they realize, wait, Jewish life is not the only ideology in the world.
Oh,
I feel like if you are actively allowing them to engage with other people, they can build up those antibodies.
Rabbi Asher
Like
disappeared.
when you
One
expose a
second.
child to germs and they build up antibodies, I think you're looking at it backwards because once, for example, if I've only ever known an Islamic point of view my whole life, and then I go out into the big bad world of London and I realize there's so many different people, so many different,
Yeah.
it's going to be a massive shock to me. So are you really giving them the tools to be prepared, or are you actually putting them in a state of shock for once they leave?
Yeah.
I just have to
So
say,
go ahead.
one second. I just got to say that whenever he is challenged, he leaves. And it's really frustrating. I'm just
Yeah.
really frustrated right now. Whenever he's challenged, he
Oh,
leaves.
wow.
I was going to say,
I don't.
Reuven, as well as a father, I gave my daughter the option, even as soon as after her bat mitzvah. I said,
At,
continue. You want to
at
continue going
what
to the
point, though?
the
Yeah,
temple?
not
Do you
only
want?
that, my
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying, at
my
what point?
husband, my
From what
husband when
point?
he was little,
Sorry,
he
Deborah.
was oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
No, go
Oh,
ahead. Go ahead.
when he was little, he grew up Catholic, and he said when he was 5 years old, when he realized that there was other religions, and he's
Mhm.
like, "Wait a minute! Like I thought Jesus was the only one. Like what? There's other religions?" And he's like, "After that, I knew that it just didn't make sense, and there was something
And
off about the whole
And on
thing."
top of that, for me, it was a huge culture shock going from a Hasidic elementary school to an Orthodox high school.
Mm.
Huge culture shock because they were good people, yet they had access to the internet, yet they learned English studies, yet they learned secular stuff. Like, to me, it was a huge culture shock and I couldn't understand
Yeah.
it. And I'm so frustrated that as soon as he gets different, like, that he just drops out. Like,
I totally
how can
understand.
you say you've
Yeah.
debated so many people when this is the
Oh,
second time you've dropped out when
I
you
don't know.
were brought other opinions?
Yeah, Faye, I don't know if you even saw the comment, but he said that I have debated Christians and atheists more than anyone. And I wrote in the
Yeah.
comment, not any more than Tovia Singer, but he didn't
Oh, I
actually
didn't see
react
that.
to it. Because if anyone has debated with Christians and atheists, that's Tovia Singer. Tovia,
I don't even
he's
know who that is.
he's a hardcore debater.
So,
I just
Yeah,
personally
But
think it shows a
sorry.
lack of, yeah, I want to hear Ruben say,
a
but I
lack
just
of
think it just shows a
knowledge.
lack of faith in your religion, to be honest.
Okay, so yeah, first of all, I don't want to judge anybody. Dropping out doesn't mean that he intentionally dropped out. So I don't want
Oh no,
to
no, 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 no.
jump
This
on the
happened last
bandwagon.
time also where he intentionally dropped out.
Okay,
This
but
is
I've
the
been on
second
many
time
of
he
his lives
intentionally.
where he dropped in the
Oh,
middle of a life for other reasons. It's just, things happen, right?
Okay.
He's got a family and he's got jobs and everything else. So I'm not gonna claim that he dropped out because he was challenged. Things can happen. Um, Other than that, to respond to what Zeno said, I agree with you that yeah, it's going to be even harder once they go out in the world if they've never been exposed to anything. I didn't say that you shouldn't expose them and let them know that there's other religions exist, but you have to give them a basis, right? There has to be a basis of something. Well, I'll give you an analogy like this. You wouldn't, put your kid in a boxing match against somebody who trained in boxing when they've never had a boxing lesson in their life, right? You're gonna want them to learn boxing and then put them in the match so they actually have a chance to fight back. You can't throw a kid to the wolves. And what he was saying, he wasn't saying just random people. He's saying to not put him in front of people who are proselytizing, right? Because they're not gonna know how to deal with it because they don't have enough knowledge. The kids have to first get some understanding of what they're dealing with, and then they can actually process this information and debate it or even accept it. I don't have a problem if they have to accept it if somebody proves them wrong, but you have to give them some
Can I
basis
give
so
you,
they have something to
um,
talk from.
What, 1 second, Zena. One
yeah,
second.
sorry, I
Ruben,
said it,
I
my bad.
think I'll be honest. I usually agree with what you're saying, but I think you're hearing what you want to hear because he has said, and it could be it was in the other live and not necessarily this time, but he has said he would not expose them to anyone with other belief systems, even just generally. He would not expose them. He doesn't want them. He said, like, if his child leaves or a family member leaves, he would not let them converse or have a
Oh no,
relationship.
no, no. I'm
So,
talking for myself. I'm not talking for him. He's a
right.
grown man. He can speak for
Oh,
himself.
okay.
I'm saying
Okay.
what I believe. I'm not, like, I don't have to agree with 100% of what he says. I'm saying for
Yeah.
myself, this is what I would do, right? So
Okay.
I would give my kid background, and like my daughter knows about other religions and what they believe and everything else. It has nothing to do with her growing up Jewish, right?
Right.
Eh, but I'm gonna give her a
I,
full Jewish background before she's exposed to somebody who's gonna try to convert her to other religion.
mm,
And I
I have
honestly,
to
I mean,
think,
you
oh,
guys
sorry.
might disagree with it, but I'm gonna consider like the left atheism as another religion also.
there,
So,
it's not another religion. Okay.
Um,
okay, it's
Okay,
another
Zeno,
belief
you
system.
wanted
Okay,
to say
it's not
something?
organized religion, but it's another
Yeah,
belief system.
I was gonna make a personal point, but the first thing I wanted to say to respond to you as well, for you to tell them about other religions isn't going to be the same as somebody else telling them about their religion, right?
Of
So
course.
the way you explain Islam to them is not going to be very objective, with all
yep.
due
I'm
respect.
not
Just the same way
gonna.
I wouldn't explain, I wouldn't exactly get into the, if I'm going to explain Judaism and Christianity to my kid, I'm not going to do it in the most objective sense because that's just how humans are. But if they're exposed to it, to these other ideologies, they will get more of a fair, objective view. And I'll give you an example of me. I went to a very, I guess you could say, a majority white school in Woodford. I don't know if Ray knows where that is
I
in
do, yeah.
London. Yeah, you do. I went to, I'm not going to say the school, but a school in
Yeah, yeah.
Woodford, very white, a lot of white people, and there was a
Yeah,
lot of
same.
atheists. And I was challenged on my beliefs several times. And this was at a time where I wasn't very knowledgeable in my religion. I believed it, but I didn't really believe it because I grew up in a Muslim family, etc. So I was challenged on my belief and I didn't have answers for it. So it actually made me more cognizant of my lack of knowledge on these certain things. So then
Hmm.
I decided to get some knowledge, to learn about Islam, to learn about Christianity, to learn about Judaism as much as I can. And now I'm very, very happy in where I am, right? But I feel like those experiences helped me because I was put in that state where I don't
Totally.
really know my religion and I don't know why I believe in it other than the fact that I've been told it. And that's something personal to me and I feel like it worked. I'm not saying it worked for everybody. Some people might be disheartened. They don't do the requisite research and then they might leave the religion. Yes, that happens. But for you to say, I'm just going to shelter them, I'm going to tell them about other religions, I'm going to, I just don't think that, I think you are describing a scenario in which you're putting the children into the boxing ring with Mike Tyson
Yeah.
without getting ready.
I'm
I think
inclined to believe
go on.
that because I mean, with my daughter, as I said, when it reached her bat mitzvah age, I said to her, you know, make your choice. Do you want to continue going to the temple, to the shul? Do you still, you know, do you want to keep tradition? I said, whatever you decide. Do you still want to go to what we call, I don't know how to call it in English, Talmud Torah? Is
A
the
Jewish school. Yeah.
like Hebrew school? Do you want to continue going there? Do you want to? I said the choice is yours. Now, whatever she does now, she doesn't really keep anything. She, you know, she's cultural like me. She'll treat the kids to things like Purim and Hanukkah, but you know that's about it. But I'm proud of her. And if she was to turn around to tomorrow and say to me, you know, we're converting to Islam, it really would not bother me in the least, because my first question and only question would be, are you happy? Do you feel comfortable with the decision you're making? Are you happy? And then that would be the end of it. The thing that I have an issue is with kids that are born, as we call frum from birth, who are
Mhm.
religious from birth. How much how much how much quality of devotion, how much level of devotion would you put to someone that doesn't know anything else, to someone who would actually choose to become religious at a later life and make that choice to devote themselves, whereas you have kids that are grown up in religious families in all religions that are only taught one thing and devotion to one thing. So is there any measure that you can put against that level of devotion? Is it blindly following, or is it a true heart devotion?
Well, but that
Right.
you could
And
say that about
I
every
have to be
religion,
honest
right?
though, like I think at a certain level the reason why I'm getting so kind of emotional and worked up about that whole conversation that happened before, is because of how much his closed-mindedness just kind of brings me back. And I have no doubt, this might be a judgment call, but I have no doubt that if a child of his left, he would also kick them out, wouldn't care if they're on the street or something like that, because of the way he's talking. And it just really upsets me to know that he might be passing these ideologies, extreme ideologies, onto the next generation. It's just really upsetting me.
I don't know. I think you're
That's
projecting
just
your trauma on him a little bit,
it could be.
uh, because
It could be.
when he was talking from the principle and the general rule, not from a unique situation. So you have to understand that's what he's saying. And what he wasn't saying that he would do it
I
instantly. It would
meant
be
to
more like
unmute.
if, yeah, it would be
Yeah.
more like if he like warned multiple times, just like Zeno asked him, about an example, and he said, yes, that we're talking about same thing. So, right, so he would, it wouldn't be like, oh, you switch religions by, right? It would be more like, live under the house rules and don't influence negatively the other members of the family. And if you continuously violate that, then, after multiple warnings, that would happen.
I
So I
mean,
think,
not as to what I understood he was saying. I think I
Yeah, I'm not
understood
gonna
that he
lie.
would
I
kick them
completely
out.
understand why it's frustrating for her because, like, I went on a different live of his once because he had on his thing saying, like, Judaism is better. And
yeah,
he was
that's his
trying to,
thing.
like,
He proselytizing.
yeah. So I'm like, he does kind of rub me the wrong way also. So, like, I understand. Like, he makes me anxious.
Yeah.
He
I can
Yeah,
does.
I don't have a problem with.
understand the trauma. I can
I
understand
don't.
that as well, and it must be painful.
I guess we
It's
just
not
have,
really
it's also
pain,
we have different
painful,
backgrounds
and
because
right. So I understand I'm probably projecting to an extent. However, I think it's really worrying, especially the whole idea of him saying I think the whole like basis that I usually come with, I'm usually upset when people can't even grasp the idea that they might be wrong about the religion. So also hearing like, because I'm okay with anybody picking any religion as long as you understand that there is a level of a leap of faith of unknowing, and there's a level where you might be wrong. So also the fact that all of his comparisons, when he was comparing letting a child talk to someone with a different belief to, well, what if your child would harm animals? What if they would unalive people? What if they were a drug dealer? What if they, like, those comparisons to me, it pointed to him being kind of an extreme.
And it
kind
was
of tying somebody's character to how religious they are, and it was just very upsetting.
Yeah, and it was reminding me of like when I get on lives with pro-lifers and they're like, "Oh, would you kill your child when they're 2 years old if you're going to kill a baby?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What the fuck? Like, why are you comparing the two? They're very different."
Because
Like,
it's a principle
Yeah.
discussion, right? This is what you have to understand that some people are not talking from this specific event, they're talking about a principle. And a principle discussion is a philosophical discussion. But of course, in philosophical discussion, people are gonna intentionally throw extreme situations. Both sides, like in the, the pro-life, pro-choice, both sides throw extreme examples, right? It's just a common method of debate. So you have to look past it and try to understand what people are really trying to say instead of looking at the extremes. And but from this perspective, I think again, like I said, so for two of you, both of you were born from and walked away from it. For both of us, me and Asher, we were born outside of religion and came to it later on. So
Yeah.
we have completely different approach and completely different understanding of
Yeah.
things because of how we grew up, right? We grew up the opposite way, and it's hard to find middle ground. So you have to try to like to see from both positions. Like when I'm talking to you guys, I'm seeing from your position, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So and that's probably why we find
yeah,
it's easier
but
for us
my
to communicate.
father
But Reuven,
also
one
grew up
second,
like
sorry.
that.
I have a question. 1 second. I have a question. Reuven, this is the decision you came to, right? You
Yes,
chose to do this. So
yes,
would you respect your child if they chose something else? Because you know the struggle
100%,
of choosing to change your whole life. That's the difference.
100%.
And
That's the
that's the thing.
difference.
Also, like,
He said he would not. Like,
yeah, and
that's
not
the
only that,
difference.
like my father grew up not religious at all, and then he became religious
Yeah.
later on in his life also, and he was the one that wanted to kick me out of the house
Yeah.
because he could not understand how I wouldn't want to choose that life. And
Yeah.
that's the problem. It's
Yeah, that's
the
extreme.
yeah, exactly. He ended up being
Yeah, but
okay,
that's
but my mom grew up religious and she did not care nearly as much as my father did.
And I think you mentioned it before, Devor. I think it was something you said just in passing, I think a little while back about the Balchuva. Is that what you said? Is it because of that they tend to be
Yes.
slightly more on the extreme side or the
Yes.
more devoted
Because
side? Let's not
they
say
find
extreme.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they find it. Yeah, they find it by choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
See,
got you.
I have a really different background because I was indoctrinated in school. I grew up in Soviet Union, where I was taught all these extreme Marxist ideologies
Yeah,
as a form of belief system, a religion, right? That's what the country turned it into. I was not allowed to even know what religions existed and what people believed in. Religion was outlawed when I was growing up. It was something that would be only mentioned in making fun of or as something terrible that was done to people in the past. That's it. That was my only exposure to religion up until I was 16 years old. When I was 16 years old, I found out from my grandmother that my family actually was rabbinical family that were extremely oppressed, and many members of my family were unalived by the communist regime
hmm,
before World War II even started. I said that before that I'd say 80% of my family was gone before Nazis even made it into Ukraine.
yeah,
So, and I grew up with zero of this information because my grandma was even afraid to talk about it. She raised her kids outside of this, and I never knew anything about it. The only thing I knew about being Jew is that, the people wanted to beat me up for being one.
yeah.
And other than that, I had no idea what that meant. I literally had no idea what that meant. When people would call me like Žid, which is a derogatory term in
Yeah.
Russian for Jew, I didn't know what that meant. I knew that it was something bad, but I didn't know what that meant. And when I asked my parents, they wouldn't really explain it right to me. So, once I got older, when I was 16, and I got introduced to like the history of my family, my background, I started looking into what Judaism was and what it was teaching. And, this was the fall of Soviet Union. So at the time, the synagogue reopened and they opened the yeshiva there and I joined the yeshiva and that's where I learned, what it was. So to me, it wasn't like yeah, it was my conscious choice, but I I wasn't given the choice prior to that moment.
Now,
The
Reuven,
choice was taken away from me.
yeah, can I ask a question? So for that
Sure.
choice, that's just a quick question about when you were growing up, when you were in school, and you were being kind of, force-fed Marxist philosophy. Was there anything within you before you understood anything about Judaism? Was there anything within you that you felt was missing? Had you wondered? Had there been anything inside saying, "Is it just this? Is there a God? Is it what were you thinking at that
I
time?"
I I did have this empty feeling that there was more to life, and
Okay.
I never bought into the stuff. Like I had to learn it. I had to read books on it. I had to write papers on it. I had to do presentations about all the philosophy and economics of this and everything else. But it never connected to me. It always felt like dumb and empty.
Hmm.
And when I was exposed to religion, it was like I found the right way. And I didn't, you know, like I was exposed to more than one thing because at the time when Soviet Union collapsed, it was like proselytizing from every religion at the same time. Like
Yeah.
everybody came in and were trying to open up churches and mosques, and Buddhists and Hare Krishna and everybody else was on the same street at the same time, shoving pamphlets at you. So it was like the floodgates are have opened. So I was exposed to other things I did, and I was curious. So even once I became a religious Jew, I still read books and talked to people and studied other religions because I was always curious about what and why other people believe. But I don't think it affected my belief.
Yeah.
But it's just what I'm saying is everyone does this with their kids when they're raising them. They raise them in the values that they expect to see in their kids, and they try to shelter them and protect them from outside values. You could see over the last few years, how many secular families are torn apart with this whole like left versus right fight that's going on in US right now, or with the pandemic and the reaction to it and the vaccinations and all this. How many people stop talking to their families over their decisions to choose one side or the other? It's all religion. We don't call it religion, we call it faith or culture or philosophy. But people do it regardless of what they believe. They pick beliefs and they tear families and friendships apart over their beliefs. It happens
Hmm.
all the time. It's not unique to Judaism or to any religion.
Side note, by the way.